meeting of May 26, 2015 of the North Kingstown School Committee is now called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Healy, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Avanzato? Mr. Blasbach?
Here.
Mrs. Clarkin?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. McGovern?
Here.
Mrs. Held?
Here.
Allie Lindo?
Here.
Thank you.
Mrs. Healy, can you please recite the calendar?
Friday, June 5th, 2015 is the North Kingstown High School graduation at the Ryan Center. Tuesday, June 9th, 2015, there will be a school committee work session at 7 p.m. at the North Kingstown High School.
Do we have any presentations or recognitions? And it doesn't look like anyone signed up for citizens' comments. Is there anybody who wanted to make a comment that didn't sign up? Can we have the superintendent's report, please?
Sure. I would like to use my report tonight to introduce two new administrative hirees. The first is Dr. Kim Carson. Dr. Carson comes to us from the North Providence School Department, and she is more than well qualified for Assistant Pupil Personnel Director. Dr. Pizzullo is here tonight, and I will ask Dr. Humbert in a moment to talk a little bit about the search committee and about the characteristics of both hirees. The other is Mr. Todd Grimes. Mr. Grimes has been the assistant principal at Pontegansett High School, and previous to that, long time work at Charahoe High School as athletic director, chairperson of PE and Health Department. But I'm going to ask Dr. Humbert to talk a little bit about the search and their credentials, and this will be up on the agenda in a little bit.
Thank you, Dr. Auger. So once again, we followed the protocols for a hiring process and had representation in full committee work and followed the timelines that we have followed for the other administrators that have been hired. These candidates were unanimously voted and selected to be sent forth to the level of superintendent interviews. Dr. Carson comes to us with 25 years of experience in education. She has a comprehensive knowledge of program development, special education, needs of diverse learners, staff development, and program evaluation. She has strength in interpersonal skills, organizational, and leadership skills. In addition, she has restructured and developed inclusion programs for behaviorally challenged students and developed a program for students with emotional and anxiety issues and developed a Bradley Partnership Program. So she has all the experience we are looking for, and we're happy to have her aboard. Mr. Grimes? Mr. Grimes comes to us with 23 years of experience. And he has been both a department head, athletic director, dean of students, and an assistant principal. He also serves on the RIASP, which is the Principals Association, State Association Executive Board. He will be hitting the ground running, and we are happy to have him aboard as well.
So these two hires tonight, it's my understanding that the vote tonight will be taken for their one-year contract, which is customary to get started in the North Kingstown School Department. For Dr. Carson, the salary I'm proposing is $99,000. For Mr. Grimes, the salary I'm proposing is $97,500. And in 2 weeks, I understand the committee is looking to do some work on administrative salaries, on MOS and contracts. So at that point, the contracts will be finalized. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to seal the executive session minutes of May 26, 2015?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Mrs. Healy, can you please disclose the executive session votes?
The committee voted unanimously to deny the NEA-NK grievance that was heard during executive session.
Do we have any exemptions to the consent agenda? Mr. Blasberg?
I'd like to exempt F1 and F2.
Same. Ms. McGovern? Can I have a motion to approve all other items? Oh, Mr. Jones, did you have one?
Yes, E4 and E5, please.
E4?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda except F1, F2, E4, and E5? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sure.
With that vote, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Carson and Mr. Grimes, new members of our administrative team. Thank you.
We could just make a comment about it, even though it was exempt.
So I just want to make a comment about D1, the school committee approval of the award of the contract for the PA system upgrades. And just for the safety of our students pursuant to the district emergency plans for RIGL 42-46-5A3, all discussions relating to security are strictly in executive session. So that's why we're not discussing them here on the stage. Mr. Jones, you exempted E1, E4 and E5.
Yes, and I will make a motion to approve E4.
Second?
All those in favor?
Oh, discuss, yeah. Yeah, my only point on E4 is, I think the same thing I asked of the administration last year is when summer camp is all done to talk about the P&L aspect of it, and then also a discussion not for today, but in the I think as part of the work that Mr. Haig is doing. You know, we talk about how we apportion the net proceeds from the summer camp.
All those in favor of approving E4?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. E5,
Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve E5.
Second.
Yeah, my only point is just again, to ask the administration maybe at some point of the larger issue is to, if a presentation or a short report to the committee on just all the RTI and other kind of work that is done over the summer in terms of remedial, summer school, and opportunities for students to either sustain, maintain learning over the thing. So just trying to get a sense of all this. I know we do a lot, so just trying to get a sense of all that's done over that. And I look forward to, as we hopefully embrace more personalized learning going forward, that this is an area we're going to expand opportunities for all students to learn over the summer and other times. So just, again, at some point, you know, maybe a way of catching up to the committee on all the stuff that's done. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve E5?
Already did.
There's already a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Blasberg, you exempted F1 and F2.
So I'd like to make a motion to table F1 and F2 as we're continuing to discuss these items.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Dr. Auger, can you please speak to the topic of financial insurance carrier and technical application?
Dr. Morse is with us tonight, and I don't know if you would have any questions for her, but we are at a point right now in which we've had a lot of discussions in the last few weeks about career and technical education here at North Kingstown High School, and we mentioned that we were expecting that soon we would be learning about opportunities to apply for more programming to happen. We currently have the engineering and robotics program, as you know. Well, wouldn't you know, just a few days after that last report to you, we heard from RIDE. Some reason they have these things scheduled at the ends of years, and they put pretty tight timelines on them. So all indications are that North Kingstown is a very good school for business and finance learning. We've been encouraged by members of RIDE Career and Tech staff that this would be a good fit for us, and this is a high-need work area that RIDE is looking to promote new programming in. In fact, they've set up for the potential of up to $250,000 in grant money to get started this year. So North Kingstown is looking to get on board with that. Our application is due June 8th, so we are feverishly doing the work, or Dr. Morse is doing a lot of the work, in getting this grant proposal ready to go. What you have in front of you is an executive summary of what our plans are for that grant proposal, and it is to work on a business and finance pathway for students. This would mean a number of courses that students would take, leave with industry certificates, leave with partnerships in the business world, internship experience, job shadowing experience, and it would be a program in which students from out of North Kingstown could tuition into North Kingstown High School to be a part of that program, just like a career and tech program, say at Charahoe or another school. So very excited about that. Tonight's vote is one of the ingredients that we need in this process, and that is a matching funds for up to 25% of the total. So what I am asking the committee tonight is to approve up to $62,500 in the event that North Kingstown does receive a grant of $250,000 in response to our application. I don't know if you have any questions that I can answer, or Dr. Morse.
Are there any questions for Dr. Morse? Can I have a motion?
I do, yeah, sorry.
Mr. Jones?
So, Dr. Jose, when will RIDE, or Dr. Morse, hi, when will RIDE make decision in terms of both the approval and then the level of funding that they're going to give and thus that we need to match?
I don't have the timeline in front of me. I believe it's on the PDF file that you have. I was actually pinch hitting for Dr. Manseri. She was supposed to be here tonight. As a matter of fact, she might. Oh, she's coming in now. The application is due June 8th.
June 26th.
But
Real quick
June
turnaround.
26th is the date.
22nd.
It's a pretty quick turnaround.
Are there any other questions?
Do you have any idea how much competition there is for this program? Like, how many other districts would be applying?
Any district can apply. They didn't tell us which other districts are applying. There's not actually any time to even ask other districts because it's such a quick turnaround time. So what they do is they come together, they realize they have this particular pot of money, and they're letting anybody that can do it. But basically what you have to have is you have to have, within your own school, you have to know that you have the classes that are available right away that you can hit the ground running. So that's why this finance kind of is a nice fit for the high school.
Right, not every district is set up to be able to.
Absolutely not.
So
we have a very good chance. They actually, when we met, when we were doing the robotics, they said to us, if we were you, when you're looking again to do the next thing, your business and your careers department is set up nicely for either IT or for finance. So we took a look at what we were doing. We already have different articulations with Rhode Island College and the EEP for the early enrollment program, with our finance class with Rich Garland, and in business leadership, the same thing. So, and so there's a few things going on already in that department with that particular line of courses.
Yeah, there isn't right now any other. There isn't right now any other business CTE in the state, which is why RIDE has approached North Kingstown and asked them to try to provide one, particularly since the business programs that are already here are so stellar in their content, and the articulation agreements that are already in place are really with great locations. So they view this, I mean, right now, if you go to meetings with RIDE and they're talking about the types of non-CTE programs that should be CTE, North Kingstown's business career path is one that they usually point to. So I think, never don't want to count your chickens before you're hatched, but it looks pretty good.
Right. So, I mean, there's a limited pool of money to be divided, but it's not going to be divided by 25 districts. It's probably 2 or 3.
I mean, like when we did the robotics one, I think 4 schools went to the next round. 4 or 5 schools went to the next round, and of those, only 2 were awarded. So what we're applying for is that first round, and then they'll select schools that can have a second year, and then of those schools that have a second year, they select schools to be designated as CTE destinations.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Can you expand on the part in here that talked about articulation discussion beginning with New England Institute of Technology? What exactly we're working on?
Right now, I'm sorry, so we have approached the New England Institute of Technology, and they've approached us a couple different times depending on what it is that we're working on. And so within the business department right now, where's Mr. Garland? You want to come up? This is rather new. This is Mr. Garland, for those of you. Now, are you working with them on the New England Institute of Technology?
Yeah,
Okay.
They approached us. I mean, we have a number of courses that already have articulation agreements within EIT. We approached them about further with business classes and the IT classes, and they're very interested. So I have to hand in applications like I did with Rhode Island College, my resume, teaching resume in my prior career. So it's a good chance we can get articulation with them as well. We reached out to People's Credit Union as well. They're very interested, so we have a meeting with them on Friday to answer some questions about business articulation for the finance and insurance CTE.
And so, was it a couple weeks ago or a month ago, we had the folks from Jumpstart Rhode Island and that we talked about, so are we able to leverage those folks in any of this? Since they talked about having a curriculum and that stuff?
We can. Here's the thing. In order to begin the process, we have to have approval that we can do it. So I think once we get the approval that the school committee would be on board, then we will reach out to all the different people. I think we're as far as we can go, as far as I don't want to go ahead and say that we're going to do something and ask all these people to do it, and then we don't have the school committee's approval to match the funds. That'd be a little embarrassing.
Right. So since this says proposals are operational for 2016-17, we actually get a year to develop the program before it would be implemented. So that would give us a year to work on some of these innovative and different things.
Right.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Can I have a motion to approve 25% matching funds for the RIDE Career and Technical Education Grant to a maximum of $62,500?
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
The next agenda item is discussion with Business Partnerships Coordinator Barbara Jackson, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a million things. Sorry, Barbara. Barbara is here from Workforce Performance Solutions. Didn't forget that name. And, you know, I know that there have been a number of questions about, you know, this work and how it has helped us with our engineering and robotics program for the year. You know, I know, Mr. Jones, you in particular have asked that we, you know, show where this is going and talk about, you know, the future for this partnership and our coordination with Ms. Jackson. So I'm going to ask her to come on up, talk a little bit about some of the goals that we've had for her this year and where those have gone, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you, and thank you for approving the request to do another CTE. I think that is, it shows a lot of conviction about doing CTE in a comprehensive high school, and it's not unnoticed by our business partners that we're working with right now. So that's great, and thank you for doing that. This year, I want to talk right now about what we did to lay the sort of put the capstone on where we are with engineering and robotics and lay the groundwork for some other CTE programs, regardless of what they might be. And I think business is a great one because it matches really well with the other half of what goes on in manufacturing and engineering. So it dovetails very, very nicely with that. This past year, we had 3 areas that we focused on. We focused on building better business connections. We focused on career exploration, and we focused on getting students employed. So let's start with the employment. We did a summer program last year with I can never remember what they call themselves now, Tri-Town, which is the CAP for our area of Southern Rhode Island, and they take high school students, they put them in summer jobs. The purpose of this particular program, it's federally funded, is to allow students to sort of spend a week thinking about what they want to be when they grow up, and then they place them in those jobs. So students have to write a description for themselves, they have to do some research around the types of businesses where those jobs actually exist. They have to identify employers in our local community, or if they have transportation, where they might be able to get themselves. And then they have to dial back their expectations. So if I want to be, there was a young woman last year who wanted to be a graphic artist for graphic novels, i.e. comic books. Well, we don't do that in Rhode Island, but that was her dream. So she researched, you know, what other types of occupations, if that was her, you know, passion in life, but she needed to stay in Rhode Island, what other types of occupations would release that same amount of energy and creativity in her? And she actually ended up going to work for a local magazine publisher. So it wasn't the same thing as, you know, drawing the creative side, but it did allow her to imagine through illustration what a story was trying to convey to the readers. So, you know, those are the types of things that summer program does for youth. It also pays them. It gives them good referenceable work on their resume. And it gives them a couple of important credentials. They're not the same thing as stackable certificates that we talk about in CTE curriculum, but it does give them OSHA and some other important things that they can put on their resume in addition to the fact that they had a summer job. So we're doing that again this year. Tri-Town was refunded. We'll be working with them again. We have already come back to Ms. King and asked if there was a room that they might use for the first week where they're doing job readiness training, and then once a week, 1 day a week, they do a half a day of curricula, whatever that might be. Sometimes it's just sort of administrative stuff, and sometimes it's, hey, we heard that this was going on out in the workplace. We want to talk with you about it. So it's all sorts of things that they do for about 4 hours. So that's going to take place this summer. Last year, North Kingstown had a record number of students, not just for North Kingstown, but of the students that were allocated to Tri-Town. We had the largest proportion. We had 22. This year we expect, it's not possible to know yet, but we'll probably have about the same proportion, which again will be the largest proportion. And the reason for that is because between the Chamber of Commerce, the high school, myself, which is the high school, there's a lot of work that this community puts into placing these students that other communities don't do. They just go, oh, great, you got a grant, take care of it. Go get the kids jobs. We don't want to hear about it anymore. And in North Kingstown, we take this pretty seriously, so they give us the disproportionate share of the money. The other thing that we did was we did some career exploration programs. So we had lined up 4 off-site tours and 3 on-site tours for businesses and our students to connect. Unfortunately, as we talked about the last time when we talked about the Project Lead the Way slides, remember when Denise was up here? Because of the winter, those activities got scaled back. We just didn't have time to do all of the testing that needed to happen and take the tours. So what we decided to do for this year is plan them earlier in the year so that we could bump them a couple of times and still get the tours in, because the employers were excited to have the students, and the students certainly would have gotten a benefit from seeing what we're talking about when we talk about doing engineering, producing things, what you can do if you don't go directly to college. So we're going to do that earlier in the year rather than waiting until the springtime. And we also, as we presented last time, set up connections with advisory committee members. So we have 8 people plus the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association on our advisory board. The day that we had here at the school, where we brought students, faculty, business leaders, some members of the school committee, RIDE was invited, but they had an emergency and couldn't come. 2 professors from URI were here, and our business partners. It was a really wonderful couple of hours that we all spent together, getting to understand everybody's difficulties in bringing this new animal together, which is trying to figure out how you take kids in high school and bring them into the workforce at a mature level, so they're not just getting coffee and filling the coffee machine. How do you do that? Because it's a animal that really is very new. I mean, it feels like we all did it when we were younger, but we did the coffee and Xerox copier filler activity. We didn't really do this real work stuff. It's becoming more and more important. In fact, the RIDE grant is going to require that we get students summer jobs to some proportion of the students that are enrolled in the program. And the new Governor's Workforce Board Innovative Partnership Grants, which is something that is a 2-year rolling cycle of high-demand occupation work, requires now, it used to be strongly suggested, but now it's required, that direct placement from high school into these programs is made possible before students are actually unemployed. So that's a huge change. You usually, for those kind of grants, have to be unemployed first and then get a job. This way, they're letting us take students who have graduated high school directly from high school into career technical training. So that's a big change. So I think we're talking the same language now across the workforce spectrum. We just have to find the right buttons to push to sort of make the rockets take off. I think we're getting close. In 2015, for example, we held Manufacturing Day. North Kingstown had the largest number of students that came to Manufacturing Day at Quidnesset. I'm sorry, that was 2014. In Quidnesset, our students received a sponsorship for the robotics team. And they are also, I can tell you that of all the meetings that I go to with these manufacturers, they always point to the North Kingstown students that they met that day as the most articulate, the ones with the best soft skills, and the ones that they'd like to hire. That was such a successful event that the school has agreed to be the lead school, in fact, the only school, helping the Manufacturers Association for this next Manufacturing Day, which is September 30th. Unfortunately, it's at Rhodes. It's not as convenient as it was this year. It's at Rhodes on the Patuxent. But the school will be setting up the robotics program and also hosting the Engineering Olympics, which is something that we hope young women are more interested to. When we look across the nation at the Engineering Olympics programs that happen, there are many more women than we find in robotics programs, and we want to get them into, technical careers. We're looking at national certifications. There are some that come already with the engineering and robotics program. There are many that are in the business program that will roll out when we do the CTE. But the nice thing about those 2 programs is many of the national certifications are appropriate for both. So, for example, while in manufacturing we have the national certifications for MSSC, either SolidWorks or MasterCAM as CAD certifications, or even NIMS, which is it's for people who are more manufacturing than engineering. And in business, we have Microsoft and accounting. Project management spans both of those. So you can get a national project management certification. Whether you're on the business side, it would be appropriate, or whether you're on the engineering, manufacturing, robotics side, it would be appropriate. The same thing for logistics and materials management. In Rhode Island, I can tell you that those are two very high-demand occupations. And I can see that a student, whether they were in the business side or on the engineering robotics side, would benefit from a logistics and materials management certification. So I think we're in a good place at the right time. All of these RFPs are becoming synchronized, so even though they're coming out of RIDE, they have very similar language to the RFPs that are coming out for workforce development from the Governor's Workforce Board. And I think that North Kingstown is positioned very well. I know Dr. Auger comes with me to many statewide events. Everybody knows his name, certainly in the engineering and manufacturing side. They also know the robot, because we take the robot with us frequently. So, in fact, we're going to another breakfast on Thursday where we're going to be talking about skills gap in technical fields with employers and with educators. So we're looking forward to that on Thursday. So, questions?
Yeah, I just want to, before we take questions, thank you, Barbara, for your assistance to us, in getting the program started. A lot of the grant money, including what we're applying for right now, is dependent upon securing business partnerships and getting, the feedback from people in the field that you are networked with, and it's been very helpful to us. The day that we had in November, where we had roughly 10 business owners, many of them from Quonset Point, URI people, school people, school committee people, students, all together in this brand new lab with state-of-the-art equipment, was a very exciting day. We're one of the only districts in the state, for instance, that has the robotics pit on site.
Right.
So other districts that want to do that with their teams, they're welcome to come on over and practice against us. But it just shows that we're really, in the center of this, and a lot of that has to do with your guidance and your advice to us. I just want the public to know, and I've had this conversation with many on the school committee, but, as we move forward and grow career and tech programming, I think it's important that we start to look at different models that may or may not include services that Ms. Jackson can provide, namely, since we're going to need someone probably in-house to help us with business partnerships and with recruiting. Most districts, all districts that have career and technical centers, we're a little small in regards to our offering, we call the center at this point. But once you start to build that kind of a capacity, the traditional mode is to look for a career and tech director, and that is usually an administrative salary, something in the neighborhood of a principal or assistant principal type of role. And so, I think maybe we don't need that right now, and maybe not next year or the year after that, but I think we need to start talking about transitioning some of this, particularly the recruiting piece, more, into an internal kind of format. I don't know if there are any questions from the committee.
Ms. McGovern?
So when I was reviewing this and what little I know about the program, the engineering robotics program and the engineering Olympics both seem to be geared towards the college-bound students. But my understanding is that the manufacturers have entry-level jobs that high school graduates are not qualified for. But if these programs, the engineering robotics and engineering Olympics and other career and technical offerings could be, if non-college bound students could be encouraged to participate in those and gear their curriculum through their high school career, they could actually graduate qualified for. So I think it would be more important to reach out to them to give them viable options for careers without having to go to college.
In the pathways that were created for the engineering and robotics, it includes a track for students that are not going directly to college. We like to say not going directly to college rather than, because they could. Hopefully they will. And maybe their employers will even, God forbid, pay. The concept that would be, right? So those students in engineering and robotics that take, for example, the MSSC, which stands for Manufacturing Skills Standards Council. That's one of the national stackable certificates that you get. It's worth 3 college credits if you pass the exam. But that certifies the student's knowledge in precision measurement, in blueprint reading, in quality testing, like using quality instruments and being able to do frontline inspection. So that's one of the things in particular that people at Hexagon, when we had our day in the robotics pit with our business partners, Hexagon and Safina and Handles Unlimited, which are 3 big partners at Quonset, were especially interested in that certification because it's unlike some of the other certifications that MSSC provides, like safety, which is certainly important, but their safety certification is more about being a safety manager. The quality blueprint reading and precision measurement certification is what you do, as you said, on the front line every day. It's what an entry-level employee would do. So if you walk away with that certification, which you can get here in the school now, it's huge for somebody who's going to go directly into the workforce.
Any other questions? Mr. Jones?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for your presentation and overview. I wanted to ask you about, in the documents we were provided, to speak a little bit about this business and organization survey that's mentioned. You know, how many businesses participated, and you talked about creating and maintaining a database. So where's that database residing, and what have we learned so far from the data?
Sure. 2 businesses responded, so it's not a very big database. The businesses that responded were the same businesses that we have worked with in the past. So what we're going to do, what we have planned to do for the upcoming academic year is to take a different approach. I think what we're going to try to do, maybe if we can combine it with the business CTE pathway, is to say to the Chamber of Commerce, let's come up with a couple of projects that you see as town-wide projects. And rather than asking businesses to react to a whiteboard of possibility, give them a couple of examples of projects that students want to work on that they can participate in and get easier feedback, because we're finding that it's a little difficult to just say, we have high school students, they're very apt in certain areas, where would you like some help? And even the 2 businesses that responded were things like, oh, we could use people to help us set up tables at an event, or we could use people to help us stuff envelopes. It's not very thrilling for a high school kid. And what are they going to learn from that, really, other than community service? And that's important, but it's really not going to get their feet wet in making career choices. So I think we're going to take a different approach and not have a business survey, but have a business response. So here's some projects. Do you businesses want to participate in these projects?
Was this an online survey or a paper survey?
It was a request that went out from a number of different sources, including the Chamber, to about 850 businesses, and not one of them clicked the link. So I called, and I went to a couple of meetings and asked people if they would agree to participate with students. And even with the face-to-face, I got 2.
So the Chamber couldn't get our local businesses to respond to a request to talk about the skills and competencies we want of our local students to have?
That's not what we asked.
Okay.
What we asked them was if they wanted to talk to students about their particular career path. You know, tell us how you got to be the president of the company, or the guy who runs the whatever. No takers. We asked them if they would be mentors. We asked them if they would just do a phone conversation. But to get that far, you had to click the link to find out what we were asking, and nobody clicked the link.
Okay, so I guess my question would be is, wouldn't we want that part aside, I guess the mentoring and other things, wouldn't we want to know from businesses what skills and competencies they want from our students in terms of getting to what?
Absolutely.
So, because I'm thinking that, you know, it talks about learning from the database about the student time commitment and flexibility, and so since I'm a full supporter of multiple pathways and much more experiential learning, I think that would be incredibly useful data to know if our employers say that they need the students for 2 years, or they need to start as sophomores, or they need them more than just 1 hour or one period. You know, they can take them for half a day and all that kind of stuff. So is there any kind of way of getting that data, which
Yes.
seems to me incredibly rich to get?
Yes, and I would say there's 3 ways that we're approaching this. The first is that each of the industry partners on a statewide level knows that generally, not business by business. In engineering and robotics and manufacturing, because we have business partners, we do know that on a business by business basis, and we have talked with them about it. That would be what we would hope to do as we go forward in business and insurance and finance, is build that level of relationship with local employers that we can get students to, and find out specifically, not just generally what in high demand occupations do you want students to have, but for the employers that are reaching out their hand and saying, yes, they want to partner with us, how can that partnership work? And again, it's going to be one of those difficult things to do because nobody's really used to doing this, but it's getting made easier as the state and RIDE are starting to talk the same workforce development language. The other thing that's going to make it, I'm hoping, a little bit easier next year, and this is pretty exciting news, I think, from being on the front lines every day, is there's a program called the Work Immersion Program. I don't know if anybody, this might be in the weeds, but I'll tell you about it anyway. The Work Immersion Program is a program that pays employers 50% of the cost of salary for any employee that they put on for as little as 60 hours or as many as 400 hours. And up until now, it's been used for hardcore unemployed people or people who have just been out of work a long time and are returning to work for whatever reason, to get their feet wet back on the job so that they have referenceable work. So you get paid 50% of what your employee costs are, your salary costs are, if you take on one of these employees. No strings attached, and you let them go, and they don't count against your unemployment numbers or anything else like that. Well, the good news is if you put them on full-time at the end of their work immersion, you get another 25% back, and it kind of happens, so it just plops into your bank account. So it's a really sweet program. Employers love it. We use it all the time. The state probably uses it more than any other program to get people employed. Last week, we got a letter from the Department of Labor and Training that program was extended to high school kids. So there are some just like with the grown-ups, there are some restrictions on it. You can only do it once if you're a student, so we have to be judicious about how we do this. They cannot have graduated, so we can't use this program where it might be incredibly effective. The summer after senior year, they're shut off. As soon as they get that degree, they're done for work immersion. As a high school student, they maybe could qualify on the adult side, but that's a whole other Megillah. So they have to be at least a junior. So it's really the junior year during the academic period, the summer, and then the senior year. So the question that's on the table that I don't have an answer to yet is how many hours? Can we put the whole 400 hours over that 24-month period or 20-month period? I don't know, but whatever we can do, I think that's probably going to be a big inducement for some employers. I mean, a lot of employers say, you know what, I don't want it. It's just a good thing to do. Let me hire somebody and give them a break. But some employers, that's a particularly small employers, 50% is huge to take a risk on someone. So I'm thinking it's going to get easier.
That would be wonderful. I can even see it benefiting kids in their junior year summer who
Exactly.
know they're not going to college.
Oh, exactly.
So we can get
exactly.
them already into, a job they can transition to when they graduate. Can you speak to, on the flip side, the student survey that's talked about? Let me find it back here. The Career Interest and Readiness Survey?
Yes.
So
We had
when are we
6 that applied. They responded to that.
Well, when are we administering this, and why are we only getting 6 students?
There were 6 students, and they were all freshmen. We did it the night of, is it career night, the one in the fall, when parents and students come to school? Is that career night? I think so. It was like in September, October. I think people are busy. I think they don't know, and these are high school kids. I think they really don't know what they want to do. So we got a lot of the 6 students, so it's, of that sample size, there was a lot of, I want to be in retail. What does that mean? We had one student who wanted to make movies. So it was the kind of stuff that freshmen say. I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, we applaud them. We want them to have great dreams, but it wasn't specific enough to channel into one of these types of programs. And so I think we have to figure out a different way. And again, I think we gave them a whiteboard, and I think we need to edit down the possibilities a little bit, just like we're going to do with businesses if we do that again.
Well, I'm trying to understand then, what is the purpose of this, just to identify the students who are interested in transitioning into that, like they're not going it, they're going into more immediate career type stuff? Is it designed for the freshmen to get them thinking about it? Is it designed for juniors who are like, okay, you're not really showing an interest in the college path, so here's another thing? I mean, it sounds like 6 didn't really help us.
No, it didn't.
So who's the target audience for this survey?
We didn't have a specific target audience other than all students in North Kingstown. But I think that what we need to do is focus a little bit more. So I think we should decide how we can reach 2 audiences. Our goal, foolishly, we had this sort of grandiose goal, and the goal was, doesn't everybody want to have a mentor? Doesn't everybody want to talk about how to achieve their career goals, even if they've got a few and don't know? How else would you decide unless you talk to the 2 or 3 different career paths that you're considering in your mind before you go and spend a lot of money on a college career, or before you go out and make a mistake in a particular trade? That's not the response we got. So obviously we need to take a different approach if we do it again, and either figure out how to focus it on, hey, this is the orange survey is for kids who maybe aren't going to college right after they're graduating. Let's talk to them. And the green piece of paper is for kids who maybe think they really know what they want to do, and they want to find a mentor in the community. So we're going to have to rethink how we actually get the information, because we didn't get any valid information.
If I can jump in for a minute here, a lot of the conversations that I had with Barbara and with local community, businesses, the questions that we asked them, you talk about the survey, I mean, that's exactly what we have been doing. And at the meeting that they came to in November, that was exactly the topic for discussion. What do you need from our students? And how can we best prepare them for you? And we got a lot of great insight from that. We organized a course around those requirements and around the manufacturing specifications that you're aware of, and helped us to navigate with our staff, so that it does address, not only the kid who wants to go into engineering and is going to go to, MIT right out of North Kingstown High School, but the student who's going to go right into manufacturing out of North Kingstown High School, and may or may not at some point go for an engineering degree, but they're definitely going into that workforce right out of high school and they're prepared to do so. So, I think, it's clear that we had some goals going in that are more broad spectrum for, every student and all of their career aspirations. And as we continued through the year, in my opinion, the best benefit to this relationship is focusing on the career and tech programs at hand. What do we need to be doing with our kids to prepare them for this line of work? And, we have structures in place that we can continue to work on students in general. There are already a number of things that North Kingstown High School does with Ms. Jackson's help and without, in terms of, identifying what kids would like to do with their careers. But, the benefit that I see is in the focus on the career and tech programming right now.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Ojay, because that leads into my last question. So can you talk about this core trade training course? So it's an actual course now at the high school? It's for credit? We have students enrolled in it?
It became part of the career pathways that the engineering and robotics students are taking. It became replaced by the MSSC course that's in that pathway now.
So students, so have any students actually gone through it?
I don't think you're doing it until September, right?
Okay, so it starts in September.
Dr. Mansur, you approved it this year. It's in the program of studies, but it's something students work towards.
Right, we actually had it in there, the students could sign up. When we got our first computer printout in Aspen, there was 2 students that signed up, and we have a cap of usually about 16 students that have to run, in order to run a class for the budget, so it got knocked out. But I think also, once students start hearing about it and they know a little bit more about it, it means the first year. So it's in there, it's been approved. We had the curriculum, we had Jerome and Mr. Powell looked at it. Barbara had given all of the information off the computer for the online information. The students could either take it during the day in the classroom. They could also do it at night at home. It was all online. I think it would be very in line to what you really are striving for. And unfortunately, the demand isn't there right now. And hopefully if the students, and again with the South County Community Action over the summer program, in the beginning there wasn't a lot of students to do that, and last year I think we had 20, and hopefully this year we'll have more. So it seems as more and more students are figuring out that this is going on, and it's fun, and there's a lot to do, and it's a good pathway to be on. I think there'll be more people involved. And we were just talking about maybe directing it towards right now, taking a look at our marketing and looking at some of the students that are in our Success Academies, things like that, and seeing what that are having some difficulty in math, or they have the concepts, but maybe the pre-calculus, calculus isn't the way they want to go. And this might be a class that they really enjoy. Yeah. So anyway.
So would the concept be a hybrid class, or could you mention they could take it at night online? So
yeah, there's quite a few hours. So normally if you're, they could take it online if they wanted to, but in our particular school building, it's in the class also.
But they could take it online.
So if we only had 2 students, why wouldn't we let those 2 take it online as an option?
Well, because you need a person who's an instructor. If you flip the classroom, which you can do, you still need an instructor on the classroom side.
Okay, so it's more of a...
Blended.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Jackson.
Thank you.
Mrs. King, do we have any issues for the 2014-15 school budget?
No.
2015-16 school budget?
No.
CIP existing bond, future bond?
Just on the CIP, I do want to give you guys a heads up on something that I'm going to have to take a look at over the summer. Back at the very end of March, just as we hit our last storm, our 1999 sander truck broke down. And our guys have been looking at it. Dave Young has been looking at it when he was able to, and it can't be repaired. We're going to need to go out to bid to get another one of those sander trucks. The early estimates that I have are $80,000 to $90,000. They're not cheap, but I do think we got our money's worth out of this last one. It was 16 years old. Luckily, temporarily, because it was the last storm of the year, thank goodness it didn't go down any earlier. It was a really rough winter, as everybody knows. So if you do see an RFP out there for that, it is definitely something we're going to have to look at and consider going forward.
Next item is the memorandum of agreement with a teacher portable device agreement.
I'll ask Dr. Humbert to talk a little bit about where we are with the technology plan and how this fits into our long-term plans for that.
So we are moving very rapidly towards the dissemination of the Chromebooks to the teachers, and we are looking to do that just over 2 weeks from now. We are working on the details of that. In fact, we finalized things at a meeting today, and part of this was the agreement that you see before you, the memorandum of agreement between the school department and the NEANK. And so both sides are in agreement on this policy, and I think you'll see that it covers many of the issues that we need, big picture issues that we need, that we need in place before we move forward with the dissemination. And then following that, you'll see the policies. We've worked very hard over the last couple of weeks to revise and update our policies, the language, even the devices that were cited in the old policies are pretty well antiquated at this point, talking about BlackBerries and various things like that. So we did some updating, and actually we had almost like an unacceptable use policy, and we have moved towards a responsible use policy. That's what people are doing these days to encourage the use of technology, but in a responsible way.
Can I have a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for the NKSD NEANK teacher portable device agreement?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Oh, wait, sorry, we didn't discuss.
I did have a comment.
Okay.
Sorry.
On item I, it says employee agrees to pay the fair market value of the device still owed to the leasing company, but that could be contradictory phrase, because the fair market value may not be the same as the amount still owed to the leasing company. So I prefer that it just said the amount still, fair market value or amount still owed, whichever is greater.
Okay, the lease is a fair market value lease, but I don't see any harm in that. We could change that.
I'm just thinking of a 3-year-old item, if we're leasing it for 5 years, we still owe 2/5 of it, and
well, and that would be what we would still owe on the fair market value.
yeah.
But I don't see any problem with that at all. We can change that. We'll just add an or whatever's still owed.
Okay.
So we should rewind. I forget the name of the motion to undo a vote. Is it a
Why don't you just
unanimous
withdraw,
consent and?
Yeah,
all right.
just withdraw the motion, withdraw the second, withdraw the vote, and now,
By unanimous consent, anyone object to withdrawing the motion and the approval?
so you're going to now make a motion to approve
As amended.
Right.
So I move to approve the memorandum of agreement as amended. And do you, Mrs. King, have the comments enough to, or whoever needs to make the appropriate change?
Yes,
It
we
wouldn't
can
be you
change
yet.
that. I don't think that'll be any problem with the union either. When I spoke to Ms. Ramos about it, she understood, what we were trying to get at with that one particular phrase. So I don't think there'll be any problem at all. We'll add that.
A serious
whatever's
objection, we can revisit it if we have to. Okay. So a motion to approve as with the amendment that Ms. McGovern recommended with respect to being fair market value or the remaining value owed to the leasing company.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Any further discussion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So next, we have several policies here on the agenda, and I believe Mr. Blasberg had some comments.
Yeah, I just want to mention, first of all, they're just here for the first time in our policy, not in the policy written down version, but our policy and practice has been to have at least 2 reads of these before we approve them. I do have, I know you've worked hard on them, I have some comments to them, not in the serious, changing anything major. It's just the lawyer in me. I have a lot of interest in the technology policies in general and just some changes to wording. So I'll get back to you on, some things that I wanted to look at in them. And I'd like to, talk about them and revisit them next time around. So
All right,
Hey, we're in a time crunch.
yeah, the problem is, the one that has to be signed, the responsible use policy, which is the IGNDBR, is going to be used with the teachers. This will be disseminated to them. They need to sign it before we can start the process of dissemination, because everything is going to be scanned. So we are really in a time crunch now.
Well, we always do 2 reads on policies.
Actually, that would be for new policies. For revised policies, it's only 1.
And when did you need that one approved by? Tonight? Okay. Yeah, no, I have it here too.
We can make it work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of revisions to this.
We'll start the
I know.
dissemination process on the 10th.
And I apologize, it's just, I mean, we've received these last week, I've looked through them, I've had, some comments to them. I don't have, major changes, and I don't mean to derail your process. But just, we haven't had a lot of time to look at, and, I mean, these are, it's about 12 pages of extensive edits to the policies as they exist now, so.
So why don't you motion to table with the understanding that you're going to give your comments to Dr. Humberg in the next few days?
Yep.
And then they can be approved at the next meeting. Will that give you enough time to, table it
Just
tonight?
maybe.
Yeah, it is going to be tight, but we'll
Well, I don't
have to make
necessarily
it work.
know that, well, I don't know if we even really need to table it I mean, we've always done 2 reads in the past, I thought, but okay, so if it's not on, only on new ones.
Thank you. New policies yet too. This is, it's an extensive revision, but table it, fix it, and
Then my motion would be to table for now, where'd my agenda go? E1, 2, and 3, with the understanding that we'll redistribute these and approve them at our next meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
And I will say for the IGNDB3, that is basically the references to the titles of the other 2 policies. So number 3 is very basic. We only added one thing about the students using their own personal devices. So it's really these 2 policies.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Can you hit the volume, please?
It's okay, I'll talk to Sharon.